got some drama for us?
Not a lot of signing day drama. Kind of, I think the class is done. We had a couple of late additions here, two that just jumped on board today, and offensive lineman Elijah Thurman and offensive lineman Mason Wade. Had been committed to Duke since June. Both those guys committed and signed today. Thurman's a 4-star. Wade's a 3-star who had a ton of offers coming out of high school. Gives Clemson 4 offensive linemen. Me and you talked extensively about how Clemson struggled, recruiting offensive linemen and this 2024 class. And now all of a sudden we get to sign today and they've got 4. That they added their second commit late last week with Watson Young, a local guy who's a legacy guy, and he joins Ronan O'Connell, who's been on board since June. So again, a total of 4. Some versatility within those guys. The weak link maybe it's not quite as weak as what we originally thought it was going to be when it comes to the offensive line. But man, really like what Clemson did in this class at the skill spots, man, with Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore at wide receiver and David Ajamame at running back. Add in Christian Beckcure there at tight end. A lot of dynamic playmakers that can stretch the field. Clemson's kind of lacked the ability to push the ball down the field. It seems like when they try to, hit some of those explosives, it's been a struggle. And Moore and Wesco can both stretch the field for you. Ajamame's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. I think that's something he brings different to the table when you compare him to Phil Maffa or Will Shipley. Those guys are great, solid running backs. Just kind of like that top end speed that Ajamame's got. And Beckcure, man, he's just he's going to be a mismatch problem. 6'5". I think he's already about 240 pounds. Does a lot of pass catching in the offense he plays in high school up there in Illinois. But love what Clemson did, on the offensive side. This comes a year after I thought they kind of retooled on defense, and now here they are kind of revamping some of the skill spots on offense. So I think they're getting a lot of value with a lot of these guys on the offensive side of the ball.
So the guys that you just talked about on that side of the ball, are those the most likely to make an impact right out of the gate in 2024? Or are there some other guys that you think might be ready to play?
I think those 2 wide receivers can be instant impact guys. Wesco's going to enroll early. Dabo Sweeney made it sound like today that there was maybe a slim possibility he might be here for bowl practices, if I'm remembering that right. TJ Moore doesn't enroll until the summer. Wesco's a guy that's probably going to need to put a little bit of bulk on before he's really ready to play every down. Probably have time to do that between now and the start of next season. I think TJ Moore will step on campus physically ready. But I think those 2 guys are going to have a lot of early opportunities. Bo Collins, transferred out. And Clemson has really lacked a dynamic playmaker out there on the boundary. Not Bo Collins, but Clemson's not had that alpha dog wide receiver here in recent years. I think Wesco and Moore, particularly Moore, can give you that out there on the boundary, man. I just love what both those guys bring to the table. Soft hands, they go up high point the ball. TJ Moore's film is just full of highlight reel catches. They have a tendency to burn man-on-man coverage. I mean, there's just a lot to like about those guys. Beckcure and Ajamame's probably their situation is going to be a little bit different. Ajamame's going to probably join what already is a crowded running back room, depending on what happens with Will Shipley. Even if he leaves, you still got a pretty crowded room there with those guys, with Maffa and the freshmen you signed last year with Jarvis Green and Jay Haynes, and then you still got Keith Adams Jr. there. So we'll see what Ajamame can do when he gets here. He is going to be one of those guys who's taking part in some of the bowl practices. And Beckcure, same thing with him. There's going to be some guys in front of him. Obviously, Jay Brenningstool, Josh Sapp still around. Olsen Pat Henry's a freshman who got on the field some this year. Marcus Dixon's another guy they like a lot who's already on campus and is a freshman. So those 2 guys, it might be a little bit harder to get some opportunities and say, it will be for Wesco and more because I think those guys are going to have a lot of early opportunities to show what they can do.
Jason Priester's here talking up Clemson football, of course, National Signing Day. And you can catch Jason's work at allclemsontigers.com. You see it right there. Follow Jason on X. You can see his Twitter/X handle, whatever you want to call it, right there. Jason, I'm going to take you down the board. So you've done a nice job of reviewing a lot of these player profiles. But if we go deep down the board here, not that you have to address these guys, but some of the guys that may be a little bit more underregarded, is there anybody that you really like that you think could surprise?
CJ Cooper Taylor, the linebacker out of Good Counsel. He's a teammate of Darian Mayo, who they're bringing in at defensive end in this class. Who's another guy I really like. He's not going to enroll early, but I think he's going to be a guy that has a lot of early opportunities. But he's more of a highly rated guy. Cooper Taylor kind of came out of nowhere. You know, a lot of us kind of assumed Bradley Shaw, 4-star linebacker, was going to be a part of this class, and you know, find out late in the process he's heading to Arkansas. So Clemson quickly moves on to get Cooper Taylor on campus late last week for an official visit. And when I went and watched this kid's film, man, I was impressed. Talked to somebody that watched him play a lot, and he's kind of a late bloomer. Transferred to Good Counsel before his senior season, and he played on a team with a lot of other 5-star talent like Aaron Childs. He played beside Aaron Childs, who's the linebacker that's committed to Florida. But the light seemed to really come on for him over the second half of the season. I think he was an all-region player in the WCAC league up there, whatever they call it, man. I think he's a guy that could find his way into the rotation, you know, come maybe as a sophomore or junior. Not saying he's going to come in and play as a freshman or anything like that, but there's a lot to like when you watch his film. Same thing with Mason Wade, the offensive lineman. They just flipped from Duke today. You know, I love what they've gotten him. And let's go all the way down to the bottom of the list there, because I don't want to skip this guy, the kicker. No, I've been saying it Nolan Hauser. Dabo was pronouncing it Nolan Hoosier today. So Nolan Hoosier, I'm going to go with that. Clemson's struggles in the kicking game, well documented this season. You know, they brought in this highly rated kicker from the high school ranks last year. He was coming off of ACL, and man, he just struggled mightily for whatever reason when it came to kicking field goals. Lost that job. They brought in another kid by the name of Jonathan Weiss, who you know, he filled in all right. Had his best game of the year in the last regular season game, but he's not going to be here next year, so there's going to be an open void there. And Nolan Hauser's, my opinion, best kicker in the country. A couple of his services, I think Chris Saylor Kicking's got him rated as the top kicker in the country. He holds the record for most field goals as a high school player nationally, if I'm not mistaken, was 66. I was talking with somebody earlier today. You know, I cover high school football on every Friday night, and I rarely see anybody line up to kick a field goal. This kid's kicked 66 of them, man, and he's got a strong leg. So kickers kind of get overlooked sometimes, but I think he's a big part of this thing. And I also love what Clemson's done on the back end with some of these defensive backs. I thought they knocked it out of the park in the 2023 class with guys like Avion Terrell, Khalil Barnes, Shelton Lewis. And now you're, you know, just bringing in more talent on top of that. You got corners to Devoy Fegan, Corey, and Gibson. Gibson was one time a top 100 player in the country. I don't know why he got dinged so hard. Two very talented corners. Same thing at safety with Noah Dixon and Ricardo Jones, two dynamic guys. Jones is just a ball hawk, seems to be around the ball. Don't know a lot about this Joe Wilkinson kid yet. Watched a little bit of his film last night. He likes to bring the wood. He was a late addition to the class yesterday out of Rome, Georgia. And then to meet a wild card's Ashton Hampton, not one of the more highly rated guys. Kind of like a Swiss Army knife, man. You can play him at corner, you can play him at safety, you can play him at nickel. Sounds like they're gonna slide him in at corner to begin with, but he's long, he's athletic, he's fast, he's a typical Mike Reed corner, man. I love what they did on the back end of this class, man. And we can't talk about this class without mentioning Sammy Moore, obviously. I mean, Sammy Brown, obviously. He's the cornerstone of the class, 5-star kid, the most highly rated kid in the class, and um, helps out Clemson a lot that Barrett Carter's coming back. It means you don't have to rush Sammy Brown into some starting role maybe before he's ready. But it's going to be hard to keep that kid off the field, man. He just does a little bit of everything, man. He played a lot of running back in high school, as well as linebacker. I mean, he's versatile and he's athletic and he's fast. He just moves so smoothly. He's got that sideline to sideline speed and he's good in coverage. And add in Wade Woodaz as a little brother, as the third linebacker take. I think Clemson's done really well with the linebackers. All in all, not a bad class. Particularly when you look at the skill spots and on the back end of that defense and a couple of other spots on that defensive side, and Sammy Brown and I'm a big fan of the Darian Mayo take too, man. I think he's 6'7", 260-pound defensive end. Explosive first step. There's a lot to like about that kid.
Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com. Jason and I get together every week to talk Clemson football. We post those segments over on our Clemson channel, so we know we've got a few different folks here listening to us, so you may not be aware, again, about Jason's work on allclemsontigers.com and also the segments that we post every week over on the Clemson channel. We also have a Clemson show on Thursday nights with Jordan Bowman and Tiger Paw Craven to know about as well. Jason, busy day. Thanks for making it work for us. We appreciate it. Good to see you.
Got in just in time, man. My pleasure.